I don't have a beer for this episode.
Me either.
Shit. You're allergic to beer.
I know. Hello there, friends, and welcome to the Paranatural Podcast. My name is Ben.
And I'm Hank Hill. Go, dang it.
That was a pretty good one, too. But you're not Hank, you're Jake.
I am.
And we are so glad to have you with us tonight as we talk about Stardust Ranch and its former owner, John Edwards, Alien Slayer. Jacob, how you doing tonight, my friend?
Doing good.
That's good.
How are you?
I'm all right.
All right.
For the most part, I'm pretty all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. We're back.
We're here again with all of you lovely people.
Yeah. And no Satan's Harvest tonight.
Yep. We've left Satan's Harvest in the past, and tonight we're going to talk about Stardust Ranch and John Edwards, the Alien Slayer.
What a man.
Now, before we get into that, though, I have to talk about this.
Oh.
So, someone who identified themselves as Anonymous Squirrel tried to leave us a voicemail via the voicemail feature on our website, paranaturalpodcast.com.
Uh-huh.
Unfortunately, something went wonky, and it either didn't record or didn't save or didn't send or something, and all I got was like a 1/10 of a second of quote-unquote recording, which is just about long enough to be over as soon as it registers that it's playing.
Nice.
So, Anonymous Squirrel, whomever you are, I'm very, very sorry, but whatever voicemail you intended to leave did not come through, but we hope you'll try again. I tested it out, and it works now. So, we'd love to hear whatever you had to say.
Anonymous Squirrel.
Anonymous Squirrel.
Nice.
And that sentiment extends to any and all of our listeners, not just Anonymous Squirrel. We would love to hear from you as well. So if you would like to leave us a voicemail, head over to our website, paranaturalpodcast.com. Once there, you will see a little green button with a microphone on the bottom right of your screen. Tap that and say whatever your heart desires. Unless your heart desires to talk for more than 2 minutes. Then you'll have to leave multiple voicemails, which is also all right.
I'm groovy with that.
Sorry, Anonymous Squirrel, but whatever you tried to do, I didn't get it. We didn't get it.
Try again, Holmes.
Try again. All right, buddy boy. Ready to talk about some weird shit?
No.
No? Okay.
When am I ever ready to talk about weird shit, Ben?
What are we doing here, then?
I thought we were talking about like politics and current events that have nothing to do with paranormal stuff.
Knitting.
I love knitting.
We should have a Bob Ross review podcast.
No. You think Derek interrupts enough now?
That's probably real.
It is.
Bob Ross
We're
is
gonna
my
have
hero.
some happy little trees.
Bob Ross is my hero. I can't paint, but he's my hero.
Yeah. Cue the Bob Ross bobblehead. I know all about that.
You know all about that?
Benjamin.
Anyhow.
We're from the same state. You just say about weird. About weird, then. I watch hockey. Shut up.
Anyway. So, for this episode, my sources were two. KTAR.com, which is like a radio station in the Phoenix area.
The Phoenix era.
The Phoenix era. And interviews with John Edmonds himself.
I thought it was John Edwards.
No, that's the medium guy.
You said John Edwards in the intro.
No,
now everyone's confused.
No, I didn't.
Rewind it.
I think I can do that, but I don't know how.
Well, you're going to see that I'm right.
I'm pretty sure I said John Edmonds.
Yeah.
Well, if I didn't, it's John Edmonds. All right. All right. So just a brief introduction to Mr. Edmonds. John Edmonds grew up in Chicago And
Oof.
all of his life, he dreamed of owning a horse ranch, which I've always dreamed of owning a ranch too. I don't think a horse ranch, but you know, a ranch.
That's why I got Hidden Valley in the fridge.
It's great on pizza rolls.
It
Anyway,
is.
so because this was like his life's goal, he actually began working and saving towards that goal since childhood, when he started running 2 paper routes, one in the morning and one in the afternoon. And then once he was old enough, he began working as a caddy at the local golf course, did a bunch of other jobs, and eventually became a psychiatric therapist. So as I go through this story, as wild as it is, I want you to remember this is coming from a psychiatric therapist. We'll get into the weird stuff on the ranch, but he said he had a couple of strange occurrences in childhood. One of which was that in 1963, during a class field trip, a well-dressed man came up to him pretty much out of nowhere and asked to shake his hand, and told him he was destined to become a very important person in the future. The other weird thing story that he tells is that he met the Beatles in 1965 as a child because the girls who were babysitting him had tickets and wanted to go see the show, so they just drug him along with them. And being rather attractive young women, they quote-unquote were invited. We all know how that goes. A little get you backstage.
Yeah. Show some breasticles.
So,
Slob a knob.
So yeah, he got to meet the Beatles when, you know, somebody did some stuff and got backstage. So
That's how I met the Beatles. The pair of natural slobber knobs.
But, you know, in his adult years, he had saved up money to buy his dream ranch, and he spent a couple of years looking and looked all over the country, from Washington State to Maine, trying to find a place, you know, he could afford and one that he wanted and what have you. Eventually, he found a 10-acre place in Rainbow Valley, which is west of Phoenix, Arizona. Which 10 acres is not exactly my idea of a ranch, but okay.
More than I got.
I mean, yeah, that's true. But I know people with significantly more than 10 acres, and they don't call it a ranch.
No, that's
not even a
miniature
farm. It's like a big yard. But he is from Chicago, so
yeah.
you know, 10 acres might seem like a lot to him. But anyway, he fell in love with Stardust Ranch on first sight. Like, he saw it, he's like, yep, that's the place we're going. And when he bought it, he actually showed up to purchase the place with a briefcase full of cash.
Attaboy.
Because he had never bought a house or property before and just kind of assumed it was like when you buy a car and you can just, here's your money, give me the title kind of deal. And I don't see why it wouldn't work that way, but, you know, whatever.
It should.
I mean, I guess if you got the money. John and his wife, Joyce, who was a former employee of the FBI, moved to Stardust Ranch June 1st, 1996.
It's a good year.
They arrived at the ranch to move in at 8:30 a.m. And when they got there, they saw that the house was still full of all of the previous owner's belongings, which were supposed to be gone.
Sweet, free shit.
So John calls the realtor, and he's pissed because he's got like all his shit he wants to put in the house, and all their shit's still in there. And the realtor's like, okay, let me call them. I'll take care of it, you know, whatever. And about 12 hours later, John and Joyce come back, and everything that was in the house was indeed removed, as per John's instruction and request, but it was in the Olympic-sized diving pool out back. Everything was just yeeted in the fucking pool.
Bonfire.
So, how are you going to light it on fire? It's in the pool.
That's a pool full.
Yes, the pool was indeed full of water.
Lake Erie lit on fire.
Well, that's fair. Now,
just need some pollution.
According to the KTAR article and little 8-minute documentary they have on their website, the original owners said that they actually came out after the realtor called them, and by the time they got there, the stuff was already in the pool. And they thought that John did it because he was pissed, and they were like, well, fuck this, I guess it's his shit now, and they just left. So, whichever part, that whatever, you figure out what happened there.
Olympic-sized pool?
Yes.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it's a full-size pool with, like, that's deep enough. It has the diving board and all that shit. Yeah, it's a big pool.
Nice.
So anyway, John says that since, he did not throw the shit in the pool, he thought the previous owners did it. So he calls the realtor back and he's bitching this guy out. And the realtor's like, you know what? You bought the place as is. That's as it is. It's your problem now, buddy. Talk to you later. Right? So John spends the next few days dragging shit out of the pool and getting rid of it. Which he said he was dragging up to the road, and, people gonna people. When you pile a bunch of junk by the road, they're coming and digging through it and taking shit and whatever, so, The next thing he tried to do was get a phone line put in at the ranch, because he said his cell phone did not have very good service, which in 1996, I can buy it. If you were outside the city, you weren't getting shit.
Yeah.
So he calls up the phone line, or the phone company, and he's like, hey, I need a phone line. And they're like, okay, we'll send somebody. And the guy never shows up. So he calls him back. He's like, hey, your dude never showed up. I still need a phone line. They're like, all right, we'll send somebody. And the guy never shows up. So he calls back again. This time when he talks to the guy's like a little more upfront with him. And he's like, look, we can't really find anybody that wants to go out there. They're kind of afraid of your place. But we will find somebody that'll come out. So eventually somebody does show up, and John said that when the guy pulled into the driveway, he just sat in like his work van or whatever, and just like he did not want to get out. So John goes out there and talks to the guy, and he's like, what the hell are you guys so afraid of? The guy, the lineman, informs him that his house is haunted and that the previous owner's son committed suicide in the living room.
Shit happens.
So that's why they didn't want to come out. So John's like, yeah, bullshit, dude, whatever, fucking give me a phone. Like, I need a phone, So he gets that taken care of. A few days after this, John sees a guy come walking up the path from the front gates. And the guy is not exactly the kind of guy that looks like somebody you want on your property. He's like a real scruffy looking dude. He's like, his clothes are all disheveled and shit, he's got beard stubble on his face, kind of long, greasy ass hair, just looks
Uncle Hobo.
like, picture a drifter. That's what you get. So John tucks his recently acquired 357 mag in the back of his pants and goes out to meet this stranger. And the guy is standing there with a machete that is attached to a piece of rawhide that's like wrapped around his wrist and then wrapped around the handle of the machete, like a lanyard. And the dude is just swinging it back and forth in front of him like a pendulum on a clock. Which, that's weird. That's creepy. And, that is not OSHA-approved behavior, sir. We're going to have to ask you to stop that. So, yeah. I don't know why John put the gun in the back of his pants at that point. I would have had it out, but whatever. So John asks creepy McBlade Swinger what he wants. And the dude points at the barn and says, I live in there. Like, I live here. I live in there. And John's like, dude, nobody said anything about somebody living here. You're not part of the bargain. You got to go, bud. Like, you're not the dog they left behind that I'll adopt. No. You got to go. You fucking weirdo. The guy at this point just kind of shakes his head and says, well, you're going to be sorry. Now, yeah. John, at this point, proves to be a much more patient man than I am. Because I would have pulled the gun and offered to ventilate his fucking thoracic cavity for him. But John is just like, what do you mean by that? Right? At which point the dude tells John, I'm the guy that kills the monsters. Yeah. So John says at this point he's thinking, great, so the place has ghosts, it's got weirdos with machete in, now there's monsters. Fucking sweet, right? Like, but he tells the guy to skedaddle, and the dude, like, doesn't give him much trouble about it. He just goes in, he gets his shit. And on his way off the ranch, he just kind of gives John another, like, sad shake of the head and says, you're gonna be so sorry. and wanders his ass the fuck off in the desert, never to be seen again. Within a few days of this incident, John and Joyce started seeing UFOs. All fucking kinds of them. And over time, they would see every kind of UFO you want. John says they've seen on or around the ranch. Lights, orbs, black triangles, the fucking discs, saucers, the works. He says that when the Phoenix lights went overhead, they were actually out driving near the ranch in his Mustang GT convertible and saw them go overhead.
That sounds like a nice ranch vehicle.
Which, yeah, right? Which I looked just because I was like to be fair here, this is a wild story. When you hear John tell it, you kind of believe the dude. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, okay, he doesn't sound like he's bullshitting. Otherwise, he's a very sane and intelligent man. Okay. But, you know, I fact-checked what I could. And the Phoenix lights did indeed come in from the west of Phoenix, where the ranch is located. So it's very plausible it went near the area where the ranch is. The first time that John saw something that was like unmistakably like this is a fucking UFO was he had a dog and she took off and ran off the ranch, right?
Did she have 3 legs?
No, I don't, he didn't say. So I'm assuming 4. Well, anyway, John, of course, went out to look for her. And so he gets in his Jeep and he's driving up and down the road, looking out in the desert, looking for a stupid dog. He pulls over by the side of the road, just kind of get out, get a better look. He walks up an embankment that's on the side of the road, and he starts down the other side when he sees a giant black triangular craft hovering about 65 feet off the ground. And he said it was making a very weird humming that was more felt than heard. He describes it as feeling like there was a bass drum reverberating in his chest. The hair on both his arms and his head just stood straight the fuck up.
How long was his hair?
It was not short. Like, it's
pretty impressive.
Kind of a, you know, regular guy's length of hair. Maybe a little shorter than yours. Kind of wispy. He was, well, in 96, I guess he wouldn't have been an older guy.
So is this like expression or like static?
No, he meant that
shit?
Literally.
Okay.
It was literally standing up. So John's standing there, the hair standing up, chest reverberating, and he thinks, I need to go get the video camera.
Attaboy.
Yeah, attaboy, John. So he turns around to go back to the Jeep, to run back to the ranch and get the camera, and he remembers nothing more for the next hour.
Missing time.
When he comes back online, he's standing in the exact same spot. Only this time he's got the video camera turned on and just dangling from his shoulder by the strap.
Probably didn't get much.
He says he remembers absolutely nothing of the time in between, and there was nothing of interest on the camera.
That sucks.
Nothing at all. Now, up to this point, I have been able to put things in a chronological kind of order. That ends now because John just starts telling stories after he gets to this point every time. So I'm going to quit burying the lead, though. This story came to my attention and the attention of many and maybe some of our listeners in the year 2017 when it hit news outlets and things with headlines like man who battled aliens for 20 years trying to sell ranch, or ever wanted to live on an alien ranch, now's your chance. And it hit the news. He was trying to sell the ranch, obviously. Now, there's a lot of this that the articles do not cover. They don't cover anything I'm about to cover, really. So I'll just tell you what they do cover. And that is the fact that John Edmonds, throughout the course of his time on the ranch, became sick and tired of the aliens and decided to start killing them with a samurai sword. So, as of the 2017 interview that I took notes on for this, he had killed 19 of them. Yeah. So, and essentially, I don't know if I say this in here a little bit later or not, but essentially, they like pop into reality, okay? They don't like land or anything. These are like interdimensional little fellers. They pop in, John gets him with the sword, And then if you do not decapitate them with that one strike, they disappear. So, yeah, apparently he just goes around samuraiing fucking aliens. All right, that's what he does. There's
That's the
pictures
kind of ranch that I want.
there in a lot of these news articles when they talk about this guy samuraiing aliens. There's pictures of what looks like blood stains and the samurai sword, like laying on the front porch and shit. It's fucking great. So that is where I became aware of John Edmonds and Stardust Ranch. But the stories that he tells, and I listened to a handful of interviews with him. They're all the same, and there's a reason for that. Lots and lots of stuff that he just tells the same stories because he was writing a book as well. And he wanted everybody to buy the book, so he didn't go into certain things. He just told all these same stories to get you interested in the book, and it kind of worked. I'm kind of thinking about buying the book. And if I do that, then I will review it on our Patreon. So if this interests you and you want to hear more, I'm probably going to do it. Patreon.com/paranormalpodcast. And we'll talk more about John Edmonds' Alien Slayer over there. So, anyway. Like I said, this is where the interview just kind of goes wherever it goes. I try to put things together just to make it a little bit more, cohesive.
I gotcha.
Now there's a couple spots in here that really didn't have anything, so I'll just say it right now. These are we're gonna call this the sad part of the story. Are we ready for the sad part of the story?
Maurice's mom dies.
That too. Even worse, maybe.
Hey.
So John says he had 3 Rottweilers at one time. Whilst doing battle with one of these interdimensional ETs, the Rottweilers got involved. And they attacked and killed some other of the ETs. And despite the fact that the dogs did not at all get hurt, over the next few days, they rapidly lost weight despite eating more than usual. They lost weight and did eventually pass away. He says he also had a pit bull, and the pit bull got into it with an ET. And this particular ET had in his hand something that looked like a pen light. And when it touched the pen light to the dog's chest, the dog got a golf ball-sized hole burn into his chest and also succumbed to those injuries. Rip doggies.
Fuck Maurice's mom. That is sad.
So that is, well, the other sad part of this is,
what were their names?
I don't know. The other sad part of this is that Mr. Edmonds, Alien Slayer, thank you for your service, passed away in October of 2021. Succumbed to an illness. So there's all the sad stuff.
Boo, sad stuff.
Yeah, correct. Now back
on
to the
with
fun
the
stuff.
sling.
Unfortunately, he does not talk specifically about the slayings. And that, oh my God, I was so devastated. That's why I want to buy the book. I want to see if it's in there. But he does tell a bunch of other really good stuff. So, like I said, this is where things get messy, but here's some John's hot takes. There are no nice grays.
Okay.
Some are kind of non figures, they don't mess with shit or anything or hurt anything. They just show up, disappear again.
Okay.
But other ones, the ones that get samurai sworded, are aggressive, malicious little bastards, and John's motto in dealing with them is kill on sight. Okay? That's John's thing.
Awful American of him.
Oh, just wait. He says that these aggressive grays cannot be talked to or reasoned with. He has tried to do it. He has had other people try to do it. And this is one of the things that he does not go into, and I really wish he would, and that's probably why I'm going to wind up buying the book. John says that he has had other extraterrestrials attempt to intercede on his behalf. To no avail.
Intercede.
Yes. He's had other alien peoples, I guess.
Like talk on his behalf?
Yeah, try and tell the Greys, hey, leave John alone. And they don't do it. And I'm really kind of upset that no fucking interviewer that I listened to like 3 of these things, okay? None of them were like, whoa, John, slow down. You did what now? What fucking alien? What are you talking about, bud? Like,
He did a what?
You can't just walk past that, but he did, and they let him. So I'm probably going to buy the book. Anyway. Yeah, he does not go further into that.
You know what the book's called?
Yeah, it's called Stardust Ranch, something or other. John Edmonds and Bryce, I can't remember. It's right there on fucking Amazon. He says that people have seen 160 or more on the ranch at one time of these little malicious gray alien guys. That's a bunch of them.
Holy shit.
That's a fucking bunch of them.
It's an army.
Even if they're only 3 feet tall. He has been told, he doesn't say by whom, that they are drawn to the ranch by something that is underneath the ground. He also will not let anyone dig on the ranch because he says if you want to know what's under the ground, buy the fucking place. So he says that these grays are emotionless. He isn't even sure that they are truly alive. And he says they're organic and they bleed, but they act like robots. So some sort of cyborg type thing, I guess.
Well, I bought the book.
I'm going to buy it here as soon as we're done. And then we'll talk about it on Patreon.
7 hours.
So John actually began killing the aliens because pretty much they pissed him off. And they pissed him off because they have an interest in women. Especially younger women, apparently. The guy, not like girls, but like, you know, women more in their, you know, prime of reproduction, which goes in line with a whole lot of other alien stories that I've heard. He says that, like, dudes don't get messed with so much. Like, the aliens will show up at the ranch and, like, if they got, like, guy friends that are over or whatever, they'll, like, lift up their blankets and peek at the guys and then, like, drop them and just disappear. But with the women, including John's wife, they will fondle them and touch them and pinch them and just fuck with them all the time. John's wife, Joyce, has been harassed repeatedly. And John has killed 3 of these grays in the process of attacking his wife, which good on you, John. That's what you should do. When he talks about them materializing and dematerializing, which I didn't follow up on this, but I want to, he says that a man named Captain Robert Collins, who is retired, has done the math on the physics and can explain how they do this. I would like to see this research, even if I can't understand it. John says it, like I said earlier, if you can decapitate one of them, the body remains. If you don't, they disappear. That kind of made me question too, but we'll get there. If the body remains, but we'll get there. He says he's never really seen him walk.
Uh-oh. Do they Kentucky Goblin it?
No. They appear, look around, disappear, and reappear like across the room or across the ranch or across to wherever they want to go. So they don't like cross the open space on our plane, they do it in theirs. Then he started talking about the fact that he has 2 portals on the property that have nothing to do with the Greys. The Greys are aware of them, but they don't use them. And one of these portals is in his fucking living room. He says that these portals are some kind of time warp. And his evidence for this is that he has seen 2 Roman soldiers walk through his living room. He said that he and Joyce were watching television one night when suddenly the power went out. 5 minutes later, there was a bright light, and then 2 Roman soldiers in full battle regalia strolled through the living room like they were oblivious of their surroundings. Fucking wrong place, wrong time, guys. Jesus, you're pretty lost.
Did he decapitate them too?
No, apparently he just watched him walk by like, what in the fuck was that? He says, on another occasion, some kids just popped up in his living room and they looked and were dressed as if they were from the Middle Ages. Now, unlike the Roman soldiers, the kids apparently could see John and Joyce, and they just like stared at him with their mouths open. And when John tried to talk to him, they like wouldn't respond, and then they just poofed and vanished, just disappeared. Yeah. So a woman who I assume is some sort of psychic or something of some sort, her name is Elizabeth August, has done some sort of ritual seance type stuff in the living room. And according to John, at one point, they contacted an entity from ancient Egypt through the portal. So that's why he thinks it's a fucking time warp. John says the Greys are usually more active at night, largely between midnight and 3 a.m., but they do show up at all times of day. Like, people have seen them, like, in the middle of the fucking day and at nighttime and whenever, but it's just they are more active around those hours. The Greys have tried to abduct John and Joyce dozens of times. Joyce, more often than John. To the point where, at times, John has had to chain her to the bedpost to keep her from getting abducted. Yeah.
I was just about to say a little 50 Shades of Grey vibe there.
I mean, that might be the initial reason, sure, but, while we're here, am I
right? Sure shit, Joyce. Let's say we just needed to chain you to the bedpost so you didn't get abductified.
Yeah. And look, we're not king shaming anybody, right? Like, I think it's there's nothing wrong with a, loving married couple trying to spice up the road to Pound Town. Okay. That's fine. That's great. It's kind of sweet, right?
Yeah. Let's not get into the time where he had to beat down a interdimensional ET with a double-sided dildo, right?
Right. We're not going to talk about that. This is just a loving couple with, look. A little BDSM never hurt anybody.
It did, though.
That didn't agree to it and enjoy it. That's what my granny always told us kids. Anyway.
I hope not.
Anyway. He goes on to tell this story. One night, Joyce went to bed, and she went to bed earlier than John. He was still up. And when he walked in to go to bed himself, he sees Joyce asleep and in the nude, floating 2 feet above the bed.
It's a whole different kind of kink.
There were 3 Greys in front of her, fondling her. At this point, John does what any man should do if there are 3 of anything fondling your naked wife against her will. He grabs his sword and goes after these little motherfuckers, but they vanished before he could get them. Suddenly, Joyce is being pulled away. Still floating, she goes out of the bedroom, through the house, and out the back door. John, hot on her heels, of course. And outside, there is an extremely bright white cone of light emanating from about 30 feet above the ground. Joyce starts getting lifted into this light. John goes fucking Rambo on this situation. He snags up his Kalashnikov, that's an AK-47 to the uninitiated, with dual mags, takes aim at the point where he thinks the bottom of the abducting craft is, and he just mag dumps into the wife-snatching bastard's ship. Okay? Just unfucking loads. A few seconds into just firing as fast as he can at the bottom of this craft, Joyce comes tumbling out of the bottom of the ship. John thinks he just shot his wife. And he runs and gets up underneath of her, and she falls on top of him and just drives him into the fucking gravel of the driveway and knocks him the fuck out, right? She's still out. Now he's out laying on the fucking ground. And it's a good thing these aliens are dumb, because they just must have left and fucking they were right there for the taking. But a few minutes later, they both regain consciousness. And they're banged up, they're scraped up, they're sore, they're bruised, but they're overall okay. And John, he starts looking on Joyce, looking for bullet holes, right? And Joyce has no fucking clue what is going on. And while John's checking her out, she's like, what the hell's going on? what are you doing? Why am I in the driveway naked? Right? Like, probably, why does my back hurt? I don't know, whatever. And John's like, look, let's just go inside and I'll tell you all about what happened. Okay.
Let's get you some tea.
So, yeah, some tea. You're going to need something more than tea.
Let's get you a whiskey sour.
Fuck's sake.
I'll tell you the story.
So far, we've had machete guys, potential ghost story. We've had aliens, whatever. We got all kinds of shit going on. We're not done yet. The Men in Black have also visited the ranch to tell John to shut the fuck up and stop talking about the goddamn aliens. Okay?
The Men in Black kind of moved there.
Now, according to John, these fellows show up in black SUVs with government plates. They do not look human. He says they look like the Blues Brothers after being in the ground for a while. Their skin, he says, looks like uncooked chicken with that kind of grayish pallor to it. They have no expression of face, and they speak in matter-of-fact voices that are forceful but emotionless. There's the Men in Blacks. John, of course, for his part, says that he told the Men in Blacks to go get fucked. So, whatever. Then they talk about a video interview, which I did see. I looked this up. So during this video interview with John, and it was done by a woman named Carrie Cassidy for some show she does. I don't know what it is. There is a point in the video where it looks like something kind of peeks around the corner behind John, right? Like over his shoulder. There are a lot of people who say that it is very clearly a gray, or maybe two of them. I don't really see it. I see something kind of peek around a corner, but I cannot tell what it is. The video is pretty easy to find, though, so if you don't want to watch it, you can find it.
And let us know what you think.
Yeah. Aside from Grays and zombie Jake and Elwood and machete wielding weirdos and all the other shit, John has seen what he calls Brillo men.
Brillo men.
Brillo men. According
like where the pads come from?
Yes, precisely.
Okay.
He says that they look like rusty-colored Michelin mans. Kind of like humanoid walking Brillo pads. Yeah, that's all he said on that fucking subject. Again, it's like he says really interesting shit, and you're like, what? And then he's like, go read the book. You're like, fuck you, John. I guess I'll go read your stupid book then.
I would laugh so hard if it was 7 hours of him just being like, hi, you guys are dumb.
I can't
believe in that.
He just tells this same stories all the time. He says there are also reptilians on the property who have chased people off of the property. And
Good guard dogs.
That's pretty much everything he said in those interviews.
Okay.
Now, here's where my second source comes in. So this is from the KTAR News little brief documentary type thing they did. John Edmonds took samples.
Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
Finally!
Yeah! So apparently, at one point, despite the fact that after, samuraiing a fucking alien, the body disappeared, there was fluid and tissue left on his sword. So he collected this fluid and tissue and sent the samples to W.C. Levengood, who is a biophysicist in the great state of Michigan.
Hey!
The fluid was found to be pure hemoglobin. And the only thing it was similar to were other samples, unidentifiable samples, collected from cattle mutilation cases, which John has also experienced some animal mutilation on his ranch. The samples did not match any animal or human samples on Earth aside from those collected at the cattle mutilation sites. The skin sample looked like cemented grass, but was found, after analysis, to be made of an unknown plant crossed with animal-based material that has never been seen before.
Huh. Got some thick skin then, huh?
Now, here's the oopky part.
Yay.
Too cute part.
Yay.
Initially, Levengood showed excitement at the findings, calling it the Holy Grail of proof of extraterrestrial visitation on Earth. But suddenly, Levengood stopped corresponding with John and seemingly lost interest in continuing the project. Shortly thereafter, Levengood was killed in a freak accident in his lab, and the samples went missing.
Fucking Men in Black.
Fucking Men in Black, bud. We finally get a guy to take samples and fucking they kill the biophysicist fella and take him. Yeah, there is John Edmonds' story. Story of Stardust Ranch.
At least he took samples.
At least he took samples. John is our
Fucking
hero.
Men in Black.
Fucking Men in Black, bud. So what do you think?
Think I want to move there with my battle axe.
So in 2017, the ranch was for sale for $5 million.
Ugh.
Which is a fuck ton of money for 10 goddamn acres, boy.
Yeah. I don't think I can get a loan.
Nah, me either.
Ugh.
But as far as the story goes, like I said, it's a crazy story. When you first like read it about it or hear about it or whatever, you're like, yeah, whatever, bullshit, right? And then you listen to John tell the story, and you start to put some pieces together, and you realize. So the fact that he was a psychiatrist,
Yeah.
John doesn't say that in his interview. That came from the news articles. Like he feels fucking credible to me.
Yeah, I mean, saying that kind of random shit, like, plus the sample thing that boosts it way up. But, like, the fact that shit's so different from, like, your regular, oh, yeah, I saw an alien, its skin was gray and it had a big head. He gives so much more detail than that. Plus the fucking Brillo men.
Yeah.
It's like,
I've heard of those a few times, but they're not real common.
it sounds like he was tripping while watching Ghostbusters.
Like, speaking of Ghostbusters, I am sad to report that our old buddy, Dildo Baggins, actually did a Ghost Adventures episode on Stardust Ranch.
Son of a dick.
I know it. Cocksucker.
Can't he leave this shit alone?
Yeah. Go do something else, you dickwad. But anyway, yeah. That doesn't make John any less credible. It's just fuck those guys. Anyway.
Yeah. Make another terrible, disappointing documentary, douchebag.
Yeah, I just thought I'd throw that out there. And
Fight me if you have an issue with this, if you ever listen.
So, I mean, I guess if you're of a mind to, you can go watch it, people. I'm not fucking gonna.
No.
But yeah, for all the wild shit that John says, and he's like, yep, I samurai'd a fucking alien and, whatever. I kind of feel like the dude's credible. I don't know.
Well, so this story kind of gives me like the vibes, not 20 years worth, but like my zombie episode I did, how the people spent like 2 nights fighting the undead in that one barn thing. I like these stories.
Yeah, I feel like so, he was like 20 some years in 2017. So 19 of them dead. That's less than one a year. So it's not like he's killing them left and right here, but he says they appear all the fucking time. He just can't always get them,
Got to be right place, right time with the sword.
Well, yeah, because they disappear and they poof out and come back. And he says they've gotten very cautious.
I would imagine.
So, yeah, that's the story.
Shit, I just saw Zeblar get his head chopped off.
Right?
By some fucking hillbilly from Chicago.
Well, see, he did say that was like fucking, at no point did they ever seem to like really be afraid. Like even their kind of caution thing was more like an uneasy truce than a fear thing.
Uneasy truce.
Which is part of why he says like, he doesn't think they're alive. Like we think of being alive, like they're not truly sentient, but maybe some sort of
consciousness type deal.
Like robot type deal? Like cyborg type deal? That's what he thinks they are?
Like kind of like how that Donald Trump or Shrum.
Much more advanced. Because these are organic. They bleed, they die. They have, living skin. But they just don't act like they have wills of their own. So maybe it's like a hive mind situation? I don't know.
Huh. Kind of pissed off about that doctor.
Yeah, I know, right? And that's real. Like, I looked that up. That he was a guy and he died in a freak accident in his lab.
It sucks.
So.
Well, I got the book now.
I'll have it here in a minute. So, patreon.com/Paranatural Podcast if you want to hear a little bit more about the alien slayer himself.
Yeah, next week, probably.
Any further thoughts, my friend?
I'm just really anxious to get this book.
All right, then. Ladies and gentlemen, we thank you so much for listening as always. If you enjoy our show, please don't forget to leave that 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. When we get to 50, we're going to do a Facebook Live chat with y'all. Other than that, share the show with a friend. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time. Good night.
Fuck Dildo Baggins. Good night.